welcome to the program.
Well, thanks.
How did you get into the theater?
My mom was a singer, and she was in not Pirates of Penzance, one of the other ones.
Gilbert Sullivan?
Yeah.
Really?
So I was in that when I was 12.
Wow. And where was this?
Oh, it was in Joliet, Illinois. And I was a pianist, and then took voice lessons and sang regularly, and ended up singing with the Chicago Lyric Opera Chorus. But I enjoyed musicals so much more.
So you actually were a singer first, not necessarily
a pianist.
Right.
A pianist
first,
and singer,
and then singer,
and I was in shows.
Right.
From the age of 12.
Wow.
I started directing in the 80s, but I went back to musicals because the classical stuff, you'd rehearse, you'd have 8-hour rehearsals. Yeah. And we'd sing at the Lyric Opera House and Orchestra Hall in Chicago. And there was a sense of accomplishment that nobody really gets.
Well, let's talk about, you said you did operas, so you've done the 4-hour gig then, right, as an opera, a performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've done that, been there, done that. They do that right now. That's a long performance.
Yeah. Well, and it's a lot of work, and
absolutely. Yeah.
And you have to love that genre, and it didn't grab me like musical theater. And you don't get the standing ovations like you do.
Well, they're different.
Yeah, but it didn't grab me. I didn't have the passion for it like I do
right.
musical.
So what did you study at college?
I was a French major.
Yes.
I started out as a music major, but I didn't want to be a conductor, and I didn't want to teach it or be a professional pianist.
Right.
And so I switched because I'd had French since I was in second grade and lived in France for a while. So it just happened to be French.
Right. So after college, then what did you do?
I traveled around the United States for 3.5 years selling magazines door to door, and I was number 2 in the country.
Wow!
Well, I had lived in France. I'm from Joliet, Illinois. I was from a very strict Catholic family. I was the oldest. I couldn't do anything. My junior year in college, I lived in France. I came back, graduated, and I'd seen Europe, and I'd seen none of the United States.
Right.
So how I saw it was by selling magazines door to door, and I went to all 5 states.
That's incredible.
For 3.5. We'd make a complete tour of the U.S. in a year.
What was your favorite part when you saw these different states?
San Diego. That's why I moved there when I got there. I love San Diego.
I've heard so many good things about San Diego. People just love it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yep.
So you were in San Diego for a while.
I was there 11 years, and I became a recruiter. I'm a high-tech recruiter.
Right.
And that's where I started that. And then moved to the Silicon Valley because that's where all my clients were. I didn't want to work straight commission anymore, and I became a recruiting manager at a company there, and met my husband, and didn't get married till I was 35.
Yeah,
and
well,
then,
I mean, that's nice.
I traveled a lot. I mean, I'm a traveler. So.
Well, you've done theater in some interesting places.
Yeah.
One of the more interesting places you've done theater in?
Jakarta, Indonesia.
See, that's incredible. That's not what I would have expected. I mean, I know, every place that Americans tend to go, we tend to form these little American enclaves, right?
Yes.
Although I just remembered, someone just did Mamma Mia in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
In Saudi Arabia.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
and the thing that I've noticed about doing that, because my husband's in power generation, so that's why we moved. He was with GE at the time, and so I got involved with the Jakarta Players, and I did pantos with them because there are a lot of Brits. Pantos is the mime went to France. The pantos are in England.
Right.
And there are rules. There has to be a black and white scene. There has to be a live animal. The dame is the lead, and the dame is a man.
Right.
With big boobs.
Right.
There's a comedic couple. It might be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Right.
The prince is a woman. So there are rules the way it has to be done, and there are a lot of children in it. So I worked with the Brits first, and I got involved with some. I was the music director for some pantos, and then I ended up directing How to Succeed in Business and Guys and Dolls, and so the most interesting place. That
wow,
besides Singapore,
that's incredible.
I've done it,
so you've done all the typical backstage type roles then, right? So you probably do costuming, live sound, all that kind of stuff.
I don't do costume. I don't sew.
Right.
Yeah, I've done it. I mean, I did, raffles in Singapore. Well, they have I was with a stage club in Singapore, and they were primarily Brits, just a few Americans, and I did some stuff for them, and I worked the soundboard in the Raffles Theater, which is a sweet little theater like this. The thing is everything there is a jungle. I mean, the cities are carved out of jungles. So, the rats look like cats, and pythons. People walk down the street because they take it out of your yard. The rats would get in the walls and nibble on wires. Oh. So I remember it was the dresser, and it was a very poignant end. And I tried to bring the lights down, and they wouldn't move. And the guy's standing there, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I brought them all the way down, then I put them all the way up, and then I got them to fade, but they wouldn't work, and they would get stuck every once in a while because of the rats in the walls.
Incredible.
So, there are those kinds of stories when you're working in places. And that's a really classy hotel.
Oh, my goodness.
The Raffles is a very famous hotel.
The hotel.
Well, that's the theater in that hotel.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's very hard. The other thing that was interesting, I formed an a cappella swing group in Singapore. And the reason why I did a cappella, because I got involved with a lot of singing groups that I directed in Jakarta, the American Women's Association and stuff. And we used a pianist, an accompanist. And the problem was, no matter where you went, the pianos were very out of tune because of the humidity, because you're living in the tropics.
Oh my goodness, you couldn't keep them in tune.
Oh, they were terrible. I mean, I would direct these musical reviews, and I would have the piano tuned 2 weeks before because you like to let it settle.
Right.
And it was in air conditioning in the American Club in Singapore, you could tell it was already, you do the C's or the G's up, and you could already hear it drop, and it's like, oh,
that's incredible.
The humidity just came through the walls.
Oh my goodness!
So it was an interesting thing.
Yeah, we have our own rat stories here too, but I think our rats are we don't have pythons, and our rats aren't as big. We have those stories too.
Copperheads maybe in Texas, right?
So what roles have you done that are your favorite?
Oh, well, see, because I'm almost 6 foot, and I had a coloratura voice. I'm not exactly the ingenue type because the guys, and I'm not an alto, I'm not a belter. Right. So it was very hard for me to get any leads. I mean, somebody wanted me to take the lead of the role of the mother in Gypsy, and I said, no, you don't want me, because I can't belt like that. I've got a high, powerful voice, but that doesn't go with these characters. So I didn't have a lot of roles. I mean, I'd have one here and there at Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and here and there. I was in that show twice. I was in the chorus all the time, and I had little roles. But as far as ingenue and stuff, I could never. And I wasn't a belter. I didn't have the right voice. I've got a very high soprano, operatic kind of voice. And yes, you're supposed to use your voice as an instrument and change it. And I can to a certain extent.
To a degree, yes.
But I don't have that bottom power that you need when you're... And I'm not a Shirley Jones. I'm just too tall.
Well, it's kind of interesting, each of us has to decide, not really decide, but to accept our limits.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, we can still expand that a little bit, of course, right?
Yes.
But at some point, like you said, you're never going to be an ingenue. Forget it. It ain't happening, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be a lead. It's not going to happen.
No.
But
and that's okay. Yeah. And what it led me to was becoming a vocal coach and then directing. And I worked with, even the bad directors I've worked with, I always learned at least one or two things.
Like what not to do?
No, well, a lot of times what not to do. But there's always a gem that But I was able to work with Roy Stevens in San Francisco, and almost everybody in his cast. And this was Peninsula Civic Light Opera, PCLO. They put on 5 musicals a year, 5 or 6, and they were spectacular. And almost everybody in his cast, including the kids, had their equity cards.
Wow.
And I'd see them on TV. You know, one girl went from a musical I was into, she was the regular, she was the daughter in Major Dad. And these women that were dancers that were in their 40s, because I was in my 30s at the time, were on Tylenol commercials when I went home. Some of the things that he did, it was method.
Right.
And it really helped me. My strength is helping singers who don't think they can act or know they can act to act. Right. And delivering a song from the heart and as a first-hand experience, not a second-hand experience, you know, where you're getting it from within. It's not, how do I sing this? It's why am I singing it? Always why.
That's interesting you mentioned that. We were working with a singer, an actress, but she was really more of a singer.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I take it back. No, this was her first time acting, but she was a musician.
Yes.
But she wasn't getting it as an actress.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're not communicating. I don't know who's doing it, but we're not communicating the right thing. And we then communicated what we wanted in musical terms. Next day she got it, just like that. And it was like, whoa, what the heck happened? She turned up because now she understood what she needed to do.
What I do whenever I do a show, I have the leads write their biography. I have them read the script and write their biography for me as to why they are the way they are. And then to write a list of
when you write they as a person, not they as a character.
They as the character. Why? Okay. You know, why they're saying what they're saying from their perspective, because we have the ability to be anybody in the world. You know, a mass murderer. You know, what would make Amber a mass murderer? Well, probably if I was abused as a child, and there was a lot of anger, and so I have them write their history and why they are the way they are in that character, and then write a list of adjectives, because some days when you get off work and you're going to rehearsal, you're not into reading your two paragraphs and getting into character. Sometimes you just want those words, and then you breathe in their character, and that's it. And I can always tell when they're not in character, and I always call them out. I don't care if people don't feel well, if you have to. If you're not in character all the time in rehearsal, you're never going to be in character on stage. But I love doing that because you can see people blossom. And it's more work up front and less work the whole time because people are completely centered. And then near the end, I noticed some actors wanted to add stuff. And I said, does that feel natural? No, but I feel I should be doing more. I said, then you're making a secondhand performance. It's no longer real. You're authentic now. If you feel you need to add it, but have it be real. Don't do it because somebody says, oh, you ought to move your hand here or there. That's asking yourself, how do I do it, not why.
Right.
Because it makes it so easy. It doesn't feel like it should be that easy. But once you've written your autobiography and you understand from inside of you, and you're going to play it a little differently every day because you're different every day. And that's okay.
Right.
But I love seeing people blossom under that because it's a method thing, but it works really, really well. So I use that as a teaching tool all the time.
Interesting. I know you've got to get back
to
work.
Yes, we've got 11 minutes till curtain.
All right, so if heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get to the pearly gates?
Glad to see you again. What'd you learn this time?
I think that's another conversation we have to have.
Okay.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Steve.